Okay, basis 53. Due to the nature of the news on this basis, which runs for a very long time, well over 2 to 3 hours, we have a whistleblower, Daniel Brad MacBolen III. He's Sergeant Daniel Brad MacBolen III. That's not his real name, but he will explain why. His bio is basically, his chain of command is National Security Council Intelligence Support. Activities for the NSA/ISA, National Intelligence Directorate, ONDI, National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, National Security Agency, NSA, Defense Security Assistance Agency, DSAA, the United States Air Force, Strategic Air and Space Command, SAC, Unacknowledged Special Access Program, Deep Operations, and even mentioning that is apparently going to get him killed. Coordinate Cell, USAP-DOCC, MKUltra Project Open Eyes, US Air Force subset Zeta Diogenes / Clear Eyes level 1 to 5. CIA psychiatrist was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ginsburg, US Air Force, 1957 to 1997. He was born into the military-industrial complex as a slave to an MKUltra project, but through a series of manifested miracles, he fell through the cracks to find a new life, where being loving and lovable has led him to the understanding of how to escape the prison of the mindset of this present corporate world and all its entrapments, and to help others to escape this prison, to begin new lives and a new journey for themselves by becoming free moral agents in service to others. Right, this is about the Hadron Collider being taken out. This is about 3 or 4 days ago. Due to the nature of the Skype, I've not been able to do the kind of production I like to do on it. It takes too long, 2 ages. I need more computing power to do this quickly. Time is moving on, so I'm just putting this Skype out as it is. There's a lot of rough edges to it. Just live with it, listen, learn, and understand. There's a lot of new information here. And we have his military number. We have his relevant military information. Again, if he's a whistleblower and he's taken a piss, the edit will stand and he'll look a fool, and I don't give a damn. This information is being put out because we do understand that the Hadron Collider has been taken out by positive intention. And Simon Parkes has been in on this as well. Again, that's another issue. The situation seems to be covered up at the Hadron Collider, and associated colliders around the world were being used for nefarious actions by compromised scientific operations, which is a treasonous act by all concerned, as it is clear now we're in a war situation that the best part of humanity is now under threat by agencies, and we won't go much further than that. We're just going to go straight into the Skype. We're going to butt join this together and run it out. The audio will not be as good as it should be. It was a case of getting this and getting it done, and that's it. And that's it for now.
Yes.
Okay, we're dealing with some pretty heavy subjects here, so I like to have a bit of humor.
Me too, because it's the only way I can deal with it.
So you came recommended very strongly by a wonderful lady called Karen MacDonald, and you have got some connections with the military and MKUltra. And let us have your full name, sir.
It's not my actual name, but it's the name that I have chosen to as a respect to a member of my family. It's Sergeant Daniel Brad MacBolen III, U.S. Air Force, disabled American veteran.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you.
That's what the DAV says. Okay. My pleasure. I wished I hadn't, but I had no choice. Okay. Basically, I was born into this thing. I came about. I was born on a military base, taken from my mother and taken to a military hospital that was brand new, had not yet been opened. And for 3 months, I was sequestered there as an infant from day one in the CIA's sonic holography on on the fourth floor of Wilford Hall Medical Center in Lackland Air Force Base. It was 4 Delta, 4D, which now later became the psychiatric ward, but they had a project that they called the sonic holography program.
Now, you've used quite a few terms there. Could you explain what they mean?
Well, if we want to update the term sonic holography, it's basically psychoacoustics. The purpose of that exercise at that period of time in my life was basically to entrain my brain from the point of being an infant before I learned syntax to interface with computers, with CMOS technology.
Now, is CMOS, this is important in terms of the development of the brain. You've got to get the brain early, and so it must then suitably develop. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now,
absolutely.
You've mentioned CMOS technology. There seems to be some indication that the donation of technology at Roswell and other times was actually specifically designed for this purpose.
Yes. In fact, it's the device that we recovered from one of the craft called, it was called the Yellow Book device at that time because you let your fingers do the walking. Later became the Yellow Cube device as we progressed. But the bottom line is it contained all the information of 27,000 species, sentient species, advanced technology, between here and Zeta Reticuli 2.
Okay, let's get to that point. Okay, let's start where you come from, how that evolved, and explain that syntax technology.
Well, basically, what it's designed to. Okay, so basically, the military-industrial complex had this project going since 1950. They came into this knowledge with T. Townsend Brown and various other non-terrestrial technologies that had all this information. So basically, it got turned over to.
Can you explain? I think when we mention something like non-terrestrial technologies, could be sort of pause for a moment, and then could you explain what that means, and then we go back? Is that possible?
Yes, that is possible.
And like a tree function.
Yes. Non-terrestrial, when I refer to non-terrestrials, there are aliens. They're not from around here. Then there are extraterrestrials, which are neighbors. And then there are pan-dimensional, interdimensional, extra-dimensionals. We call these entities or spirits. When I mention non-terrestrials, it's a whole group. I'm lumping them all together because each and every one of them have their own agenda. And we as human beings have a gift that they want. We are what they want to be.
So it's not the only planet with chocolate.
Right. In fact, it's the only planet. We're very rare. The human beings, the humankind on this planet are very rare, simply because they have what's called, it's defined by the military as the metagene factor. It's called by spiritualists as the God gene or the manifestation gene. What we're able to do in 150 years, the non-terrestrials, it took millions of years because they had to move with their hands, where human beings can manifest by thought. The Montauk Project and Duncan Cameron is a good example of that, manifesting solid objects out of pure thought and a lot of energy out of a SAGE radar unit. This actually happened in 1983.
Now, as an engineer, I'm interested in how the mechanics of that works, but perhaps for non-engineering types that might not follow too well. Can you briefly explain how that works?
Well, basically, there is an ultimate creator. Too big for this brain to comprehend. So big, I don't think anyone can comprehend. All these creatures that we find around us, all the non-terrestrials, were spoken into being. Somehow in the conflict that developed, we were created, but we were created differently with free moral agency, and somehow we got this metagene factor, the ability to co-create through this ultimate creator, the source of all being.
Which is leads to an awful lot of other things, which is why things happen the way they are.
Yeah, and that's why we're
children and all that.
Yes, and we are a highly prized commodity in intergalactic trade, along with gold for some, minerals for others. Oramus is a good. They love gold because it extends life, increases intellect, and allows them to create a artificial environment of shielding around a moving planet. And so they can create an environment in which you can survive using monoatomic gold.
Yes, from what I understand, if you have the monatomic gold within your DNA, that's what we stop producing when we reach our adulthood, and then because we don't produce it anymore, that's what our aging is basically about.
Right. When we basically have the proper amount in the proper way with the proper diet, what happens is the telomeres that is a part of our DNA that allow us, each time the cell divides, the telomere gets shorter. It's called aging.
Yeah.
When you take the monoatomics, have the right diet, and are able to assimilate into the cellular structure this white powdered gold, the telomeres do not shorten. Sometimes they actually get longer. And sometimes when they connect, you just don't die. You don't die.
Now that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing.
Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It depends on what your agenda is. It depends on if you're sovereign or if you're slave. If you have free choice or if you have none. If you are more into being than having, it's great.
So, for instance, from what I understand, we had about an 800-year lifetime, and then that was reduced deliberately so that our souls would learn more, we would learn faster, and when we do the reincarnate cycle.
Yeah, you keep running them through, you clean slate them. If you want them to be slaves, if you want them to learn from past life experience, why would you erase them? Why would anyone agree to have their mind clean slated? And start out with this clean slate. How is karmic effect? How does this work if you're clean slated? It's because we're lied to. We're slaves, and just because we're not in a prison with bars doesn't mean we're not in a prison here. And that's what this whole construct is about. Is that this has been constructed so that we dig the gold. And we are taken against our will and sold across the cosmos as a commodity. They're very valuable.
So if the calm is that we have free choice, but we believe our choices are such that we self-limit. So by not self-limiting our abilities, we break free.
Yes. By breaking the entrainment, because there are levels of thinking. And if we're restricted from higher understandings of the levels of thinking, then what happens is we become an enslavement to that level of thinking. Such as, for example, the level of thinking begins with data, ones and zeros, hex, octal, deca. It all begins, especially with CMOS, ones and zeros. That is data. There's that level of thinking. The next level of thinking was when you have enough data, you have a knowledge base. Then you become knowledge base when you gather enough knowledge. You can put it in order to do things in order to accomplish that which you desire, which is wisdom. Wisdom gives you the ability to take knowledge and use it to your advantage for your agenda. The next step above that is enlightenment, learning which paradigm of wisdom is best to use in any given situation in order to accomplish something that's worthwhile. And above that is learning, hey, I am, I've been looking at this effect over here. I see cause and I see effect, and everybody tells me this is how it's been. This is this. This is the effects of things. This is this. And so we pay attention to the effect and we totally ignore the cause. Now, the next level of thinking above enlightenment is taking your eyes off of the effect and directing your intentions towards causality. And when you begin to pay attention and direct your intentions to create causality, of course it has the effect that you desire. That is manifestation. But we're not done yet. Service to self or service to others?
Yes.
What do I do?
Yeah, very, very important.
Yeah. I mean, true love is giving to meet the needs of another without expecting anything in return. And in this world, people don't care what you know until they know that you care about them. And so, in order for us to gently bring one another up to this place where we can begin to direct our intention of causality to create a certain effect, we must come to this battle with ego. And we must overcome that ego.
Yeah, the service to self. Yeah.
Yeah, service to self-orientation leads you to nothing but emptiness. Because why would you point your intention to a cause that gives you an effect that brings you no purpose? That's where the difference is. We as a species are more interested in having than being.
Because that's a self-limiting focus. It's the physical.
Yeah, it runs us into circular logic, and we go round and round in circles. We have a lot of drama. And you know what? You can get hooked on drama like you get hooked on illegal street drugs.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of the exercise is to rise, in order to rise above the intention of causality for a certain effect, one must realize, am I going to do this for myself or am I going to do it for others? And that leads you to the next step. What do I do? How do I escape this madness of the world where everyone is a service to self-oriented? And the only way that can be done is through pain and suffering.
And some people try to short circuit. We've got an interesting little military helicopter flying overhead. I don't know if you can hear that.
They're here for me, but you're there. So you're safe. The idea behind suffering is it leads us to learning, and it leads us to obedience to that which our basic insides tell us what is the correct thing for us to do. I can't tell you what's correct for you. I cannot say, because if I do, I take on a role of a judge. And if I judge you, I become guilty of the very things that I judge you of. Simply because I'm taking on your karma. I literally take on your karma if I say, oh, Mr. Johnston, you should do this or you should do this. No, don't. We're brought up from the time we're cradle to grave. No, don't. You tell a child who's walking a fence, don't fall. How does the brain work? It kind of works backwards. They hear fall, and then on the way to the ground, they hear don't.
That's
because
why.
They've heard don't so many times. No, don't. They get so sick of that. What they don't process is the don't, and they process the fall, which is a form of intention of causality. It's a good example.
Okay.
And so to rise above this intention of causality and to overcome and to find integrity of soul, to find sovereignty, to be a free moral agent, to be sovereign, we've got to go one step above, and that is universal love, because that love, that P wave, that heartbeat, that emotion is the most, the universe has a P wave. Everything has this power wave. The word P comes from the power wave. Everything has something that sets it in motion in an offset manner. In order to do work, you must pull and push, and then you must unbalance it by pulling back. Then you get work done. You can't just push and you can't just pull. Nothing gets done. You get tired, but nothing gets done. So, in order to understand the next purpose is to understand universal love, non-judgment with all discernment. We know everything that we've learned from data, knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment, intention of causality, integrity, free moral agency, sovereignty of soul, understanding that we were created and we have this special thing that everybody wants to either get their hands on or become a part of. And so thus you have the hybridization programs. The non-terrestrial human hybrids really have it a lot better than the human-bred hybrids, because
that's the ones we've been doing here, the so-called generated life forms, which is really fun.
Well, actually, I'm one of them. A manufactured for a purpose product. And as you know, scientists back in the 50s, they could screw up a wet dream in Technicolor. And I'm not kidding. They can. I mean, there are many anomalies that in us are what they consider really screwed up.
Can you go through that program and how it progressed and what it was called? Here we called it Puppet Master. Is that right?
Yep. You have a handler and you do what you're told. But first, they let you enjoy. You must, in order to thrive and have good success, is you must develop a bond with the maternal host.
Now, the paternal host, you said the word mother.
The father is not important because the father doesn't exist. The father is not what they want. They want the link that a maternal, they want the maternal link because that's the only way the hybrid is going to survive.
Now, that's interesting. The way things are going here is that the midwives, there's a major battle going on with the health service here that motherly bond is specifically not allowed at birth.
Right. That's why.
So who do they bond with?
Well, they bond with when you're talking about our particular brand of cornflakes. We must be bonded to someone who is dysfunctional. They choose a host mother that is dysfunctional and is generationally dysfunctional. Their mother was dysfunctional. Their mother was dysfunctional. So they have what it takes to give I call us humbrids because we're human bred and genetically spliced. We have, according to who was supposed to be my biological father, told me before he passed away. He said I asked him about all these strangeness, elements of strangeness with my birth mother. Why was she in the hospital? Why did she have all these things? Why did you get divorced? Why was she grossly underweight when she got out of the hospital with me, but yet overweight with the other siblings that she that she produced, the other offspring that she produced?
How many did she do?
She produced 3 boys, 1 girl. I was one that was thrown in the mix, and I don't look like any of them because I'm not from them. I'm kin to them as much as the zygote was, the ovum was used from.
This is test tube babies, IVF.
Where they took her specific egg because she had a high metagene factor. She was Native American, and she was Scottish. Some reason the Celtic people and the Native American people have a high metagene factor. So what they want to do is join that and then add the attributes of many different fathers, mostly soldiers. Because it depends on what they're, but with me.
Theme here, but an awful lot of this always has US military or British military, family in some regard somewhere.
Right. They want us, and so they take basically the genetics from many different soldiers. And according to who was supposed to be my biological father, he says, I said, well, then who's my father? Because everybody's hush hush and mum's the word. Don't want to say anything. Don't, because it's absolutely insane. They'll put you in a rubber room and a safe environment for the evening if you start talking about this as the parent.
That's because it's programmed that way. If you start discussing it, they say, right, we've got somebody who's breaking program and we must.
Right. So generationally, the parents that have this high metagene factor, they want them to come from a dysfunctional family so that they can ease the hybrid into a state. So basically what they want is they want a female that is dysfunctional in some ways, but is nurturing enough to be able to bring about the human to thrive, or the hybrid, because it works the same way in some other circles. Not all hybrids are, let's say, non-terrestrial alien-human hybrids are brought up in a non-nurturing or a nurture or an abusive situation. It all depends on what purpose you have in bringing this product online. Now, basically the program was established back in 1950, actually 49, we got hold of the yellow fruit.
Can you detail where that came from?
That actually came from the Roswell incident in 1947.
Which was an arranged donation.
It became an arranged donation. We didn't know what it was. So,
but it was given to us in such a way that we would understand it.
The individual was dying, and he wanted to communicate in ways beyond telepathy. He wanted to learn, and the only way he could really learn...
that's the sole survivor from the other four. Total of four.
We call him the original hostage. And he was kept at, not at Sector 4, but at Sector 66. It's 66.
Is there a reason for that number?
Sector 66. Yes, because when you go down in S4, there are many levels in S4. If you go down a certain number of elevators and go west, you're going to run into Sector 2. And it has its purpose, and a lot of it has to do with medical type things, medical procedures, ways of keeping the hybrid alive because they are crossbreed and susceptible to certain things, completely impervious to other things. I mean,
we have all this thing about when we have heart transplants and things like this, that there's a whole pile of rejection. So
what they do is they build us. They build us tough. They build us. For me, I was a soldier. They built me tough, hard to kill. And in order to do that, they first had to develop the nature, nurture, and dysfunction from the mother. Now, in 1961, at the failed Bay of Pigs, they brought my project, the project I belonged to, online because Kennedy got caught with his pants down. Everybody knew it came back. They tracked the breadcrumb trail back to John F. Kennedy on who wanted to assassinate. So
that was Marilyn Monroe, yeah?
Yeah. And Eric von Marben, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's Cuban exile. Had the idea years and years and years ago, but when the Cuban Missile crisis, I'm sorry, the failed Bay of Pigs incident took place, they brought on this line from a project called Open Eyes. The original project is called Open Eyes, and there are many subsets. But the purpose of Project Open Eyes is a way of entraining the brain so that it doesn't know what it is. You don't know you're a hybrid. You don't know what your job is. You're just the average Joe working a job, doing your thing, but you have these special abilities that you ignore because you're programmed to ignore them. That didn't really happen. I must be hallucinating. And so you go through your life and you have these abilities, and people look at you and they say, "Wow, how did you do that?" And I don't know. So at age 4, they began the grooming process. And most folks think of grooming as something nice, like combing your hair or brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
In my world, grooming is waterboarding, torture, rape, anything.
What's the function of that? What does that do? Why is this done?
Trauma-based mind control is a designed schizophrenia. It's a design. It was back in the 50s. But the bottom line of it is, if you give an individual a certain drug to where they cannot lose consciousness no matter what they experience, and then you torture them to the point of death, they'll take two choices. They will choose either to give up the silver cord, or they'll choose to...
This is very important. This is a very delicate process and has to be done in a certain way, and it's not for the squeamish to be these kind of handlers, these groomers. And what it does is either you choose to die and let go of the silver cord, or you splinter into 1,000 pieces. Your mind is splintered. Each one of these compartments where there is an altar to deal with every point of torture and type of abuse. Is that a thing that's also known as the key of Solomon that they do to children?
That's what you do. That's what you do. You get them when they're young. You let them learn what humanity is about. You let them feel. When I was a child, I would cry and weep at a drop of a hat. A bird fell out of the nest and was eaten by the cat. My heart was as tender as can be. I mean, I was easily crushed. I spent most of my early years crying. I became very connected with animals that were farm animals. You don't get too friendly with farm animals because you know what, Bessie's going to end up on the plate.
Yeah.
And that happened. And I sit there crying. And so what happens? You get the switch. You're forced to eat Bessie, your best friend.
And that's something which the Spartans did. They got the children to kill one of their best mates.
Yes.
As part of the training. So it's an old...
yeah, we won't go into that, but...
yeah.
Are your implants thingy? No implants. I dug them. Well, I dug every one out except for one. I can't get it out. It's in a place where it's between the brachial artery and the brachial nerve. If I snip the brachial nerve, the P wave stops in the heart. If I snip the brachial artery, I've got a situation with bleeding. But the good thing about that is all bleeding stops eventually. So, yeah, it all stops eventually. So that's what they tell us, and that's what we believe, and it all stops eventually. But the basics is that you torture the child to the place where the brain is splintered. Then you begin the process of grooming each one of the splinters so that each one of the splintered altars, you create a person with a database. They are a storage container / product. They're designed to do a specific job. but they must be trained. So each one of these altars, depending upon its purpose and usage, is trained in a certain way. One is a killer, one is a lover, one is very cultured, one is multilingual, and so on and so forth. And so the fact that you have these many altars in your mind, then they're organized. And so
how is this process done? How is each altar trained and switched, and how do you know which one to switch back on? How is this controlled?
well, once the mind is splintered, then a form of artificial amnesia takes place. And the symptoms of it are migraines and sensitivity to light. I don't know why. Technically, I do, but I can't bring it out and explain exactly why. But at age 4, I was taken. At age 6, I began to have these terrible migraines and an extreme sensitivity of light. And so I was the first one.
Was this optically? Did you have to wear glasses, or was it through the skin?
It had to do with the fact that part of the fathers that I had was from, and I'll use the Smersh book, the Smersh alien race book from the Russians, because we have access to it and we know it's viable. But basically, my distant relatives, the part of me that stimulates my human manifestation to do amazing, wonderful things, is the hive mind of the Solipsi Ray, which are the product of the Emerthers, the Council of Five. The Solipsi Ray, they consider themselves benevolent, and they're not. They're just as torturous. They just don't know that they're torturing you. It's like when they talked to Betty Hill and they began to do their things. They had no concept of what it felt like to, that she was in pain, and they didn't want her to be in pain. And she began to bond with them in a way that they made them very curious. She was kind to them. She said, "Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me." She was very kind. They don't understand this. They know emotions, but they don't have many. The only emotions they have is fear and survival. It's about the only two basic functions of the, and that's in the limbic.
You need fear to know that you need to survive.
Right, and it's the limbic region. I mean, that goes all the way down in human beings. It goes down to the limbic region. The Jacob's ladder, and so they don't consider anything they do as violent, or they look at themselves as benevolent because they let you live, and they didn't eat you today.
Well, that's a good start,
Right. And so basically, I found out that they were they because how do you say? They inserted themselves in my life. And so I know what they look like. And then when the Russian Smersh book came out, I was able to identify them by species of which they choose to be called, not what humans or we've got to have a common bond here somewhere. Yeah. We've got to have a common word. We just can't be just throwing things around. Well, anyway, that's what they like to be called. That is what they call it.
If that's what they call themselves, that's what their name is. It's no point calling Paris New York, is it?
Right, especially
Paris.
Today. Yeah, Paris is Paris, and it's under lock and key.
Yeah.
So go we all. We are all the same.
And also, you mentioned just while we're talking about that very, very briefly, CERN. If we get onto that later, I'd like to say about that.
Today, something really amazing happened at CERN. They're destroying it. It began last night.
Who's they, and why are they destroying it?
Well, if we go back to those who rule over us and claim ownership and rulership, and they claim that they're not extraterrestrial. They're not pan-dimensional. They're not aliens. They were born here and they deserve it, and they're the elite, and they're the Dracos basically.
Right.
Well, who got the Dracos to destroy their own home planet, which forced them into this part of the galaxy where they said, "Hey, look at this planet." Well, yeah, 10,000 years ago, this dude may have been born on this planet. It doesn't make him rightful owner. But the problem is they were infected with something that Alfred Lebremont Weber has decided to call, because we all need a common nomenclature,
Yeah.
so that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
If you're on the same bleeding page, we can get somewhere quick.
Yeah.
So he named it the predatory pathogenic artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
There may be other artificial intelligence, but this one's a bad one. Good, bad, we can't say because it's not alive. It's inorganic.
Is that the goo, this black goo stuff?
Absolutely.
Which is,
that's where it came from.
The Falklands War was all about.
Yes. We've been burning black goo in the atmosphere for the entire industrial age of the human race.
Yeah. We've got to stop doing that.
Well, the petroleum the petrol and the petroleum and all of the things we put in there that are oil-based. Not all oil has the black goo, but it is a perfect medium by which it can be transferred.
Yes.
A more perfect medium is it has discovered, as it's through its travels, it's like the Borg on the film, the television series Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yes, they assimilate and overtake. And so the reptilians, the reason they destroyed their planet is they were under this predatory, pathogenic, they were infected with this AI that moved them and pushed them, and they thought it was their own agenda. They were deceived into becoming possessed, and they had no will against it. So it took them over.
They should not have evolved into spaceflight in their evolutionary thing. They should not have propagated.
They never would have. They would be still somewhere eating each other on their home planet, and they would have never left their home planet.
So now they're here eating us.
That's a good way to put it. But you know what?
It's not.
Iguana is
that's
really
not
good.
Their fault.
Iguana. No, it's not.
This AI we have to tackle.
Right. We have to go beyond and look beyond what is symptomatic and get to the cause.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's right. And just because the aliens eat us doesn't mean iguana tastes good with barbecue sauce. It does, but I don't feel right about that anymore.
In other words, we've got to get past this.
We've got to get past this tit for tat. As POTUS number 40 said, how quick we would lose all of our differences and come together if we were facing a threat from outer space. I worked for the man.
Yeah.
It was very disturbing to hear him say that while I was in my day job, my day altar, not knowing who I was, I was just a government worker, military individual, government worker. It was very disturbing to hear that, but there was a part of my brain that none of the parts knew each other. And so the thing is the whole purpose of me becoming was I was in the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force subset called Zeta Diogenes Slant Clear Eyes. It's a level 1 through 5 program, and it's a sleeper assassin that is based on checks and balances. You've got the alpha hybrids, you've got the betas, you've got the theta killers. These theta killers are the men who stare at farm animals.
The goats, the so-called men that stare at goats.
Yes.
That was a good film.
And they don't always love the goats now. some of them just kill them, and it does. It happened down in Fort Bragg. So
Now, can you go
but
through what those categories are, what they mean?
there's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta. Just as you would have, each one has its purpose. Monarchs. It's a bit strange, but they are in a different platform. We're talking about a platform where it goes through alpha through omega. Now, where does Zeta fit in? Somewhere along this line of all these individuals that are humans, yellow fruit. The yellow fruit have a small amount of alien genetics. The sea spray have a large amount. They don't do very well.
Who are the yellow fruit?
I'm a yellow fruit. We are the product of the yellow book device. Therefore, we are called yellow fruit. Not many people know that. Some guy went by the code name yellow fruit. But what it really means is we are products of the yellow cube device. And we were created as sleeper assassins, but not just sleeper assassins. We were groomed and trained and programmed in such a way that we become the checks and balances for all within our platform. The alpha, the betas, the gammas, the deltas, the thetas, the omegas. We are the ones that are handled in such a way that, let's say my handler is all right. He is doing his job. He's keeping me in line, but his boss is undisciplined and unruly and lets things slip through the track. If I see it, I tell my handler, your boss is screwing up. Well, he's a nice guy. We get together and we play cards on Friday night and everything seems to be all right. I don't see what any business it is of yours. So,
but this is a means of feedback. It keeps the program stable.
Checks and balances. So I go and I terminate his handler. And he comes to me and goes, I said, why are you so upset? My boss is dead. Somebody just killed my boss. I play cards with him on Friday night. I drink beer. We go out and rape women together. Somebody just killed my boss. Who do you think would do such a thing? Well, what do you know? Don't do what your boss did. We are the checks and balances. We have the ability.
You have to have that stability to keep the program stable.
There is you must have checks and balances in all systems.
Yeah.
Whether it be an economic system, whether it's an engineering system, whether it is a system of mathematics, you must have checks and balances. And so they created the Theta as a all-around hitman.
Yeah.
But they don't know. They're just really nice people.
But in order for this,
when triggered,
yeah.
will take care of business.
In order for this to have been done in 1950, there must be a heck of a lot of knowledge prior to that to design a system to start happening in the first place.
All the way back to the 1700s with the eugenics project.
That started in Stockholm.
Selective breeding. You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're barking right up the right alley.
So around about that time, there must have been a very wide knowledge within certain circles of the ETs and then
yes,
MDEs.
And that is why it was so easy for FDR to instigate a logging of the cattle called a social security number.
Now, when did that happen in the United States? Is that 1930s?
1935.
1935.
It was a part of the New Deal
to
get us
That's when the British Empire handed over to the American Empire.
Actually, the American Empire has always been under the rule. Because the British Empire was ruled by reptilians. when King George came in, the imposter sat on the stone, it groaned, and now they say, if it doesn't groan, you're an imposter. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what the Druids say. That's not what ancient Ogham secret writing taught, and that was very secret, very forbidden. It was meant to be Kabbalah.
Okay,
to be passed down.
Could you
from
try not wiggling
mouth
your
to
fingers?
ear.
But we're getting a lot of data drop out strangely
Oh,
for
okay.
some reason.
Sorry.
So if you keep the
Sorry.
finger wiggling, then we have less data, so we don't.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
a Skype
I'm
thing.
getting used. It's one. Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, it's just I missed some of the words there. There's me putting my fingers in shot. It's just a Skype thing. Less movement means you get.
Well, actually, yeah, we need less movement, less blurring, and also less because you can use your hand to do programming, and that's not my that.
Don't worry.
It's the things that I hate. No, I'm very good at programming. I'm very good at.
It's just when people say hi on Skype.
Right. Yeah. It becomes a little strange.
Yeah.
And so basically,
It's clear now. Okay, we're talking about the kings then.
Basically, came in with King George, and
that's the American King George. That's the
the first
King George first.
Yeah, mm-hmm. He never spoke any English. He only spoke German.
Yes.
But he was not human to begin with. He was an imposter, and of course he took the bloodline, and there was all this history.
Imposter. You mean this was a hostile takeover of the British royalty?
Absolutely.
From Germany.
Absolutely. You find the rulers, and you infiltrate, degrade, and overtake them from within.
Have you heard of the term Balon? A collective term for Anunnaki and Hathor.
That is familiar. I think I have heard of that.
Back something about that time when they arrived.
Well, the bottom line is that the reptilians who are in England work with the reptilians who created America, because the thing is in order to stimulate commerce, you must have conflict. That is the reptilian way. Conflict breeds commerce.
And this was when we had a number of revolutions. The French Revolution in Ireland, we had 1690 of programming there, and then the American Revolution.
Yes.
That essentially was all created by the same group.
War is good commodity, and it's also good entrainment. It keeps the prisoners occupied. When I go to a country and I take it over, they call it an occupation. When I put you to work as a slave, it's called an occupation.
Yeah, my occupation is, yeah.
Right. So if I wanted to control a human being, I would occupy their mind. Occupy also means to move in. An occupancy is this room. I am occupying this. My container is occupied. I live here in this container, but this body is occupying this room at this particular time. Okay. So occupation, when we began to blur the words and the syntax over the years, and we take on what's called admiralty law versus Black's common law, we can slowly, actually the reptilians, this is their idea, is to slowly change the syntax in such a way that you occupy the mind and you take the person's own verbiage, use it against them, change it slowly in a form of transformation. Trance.
As in the book?
Yes, formations. And what you're doing is you're reframing their core belief system to match that which you want to become, that which you want to occupy their minds. And if the reptilians wanted to occupy your body, they must first have your permission. There's some big deal about human beings having permission. And if you don't, right. And
Now, you've
they
got your computer's 15 million light years of technology, and
and we make it
we make it,
appear.
and we also eat chocolate. Yeah.
Yes, we do, and that's
I mean,
a real.
I reckon that's a major advance, eating chocolate.
Yeah,
The only
I
reason,
love it.
The only reason for the alien invasion is we have a planet of chocolate.
Yes, but it's poison to my race. So that's why I eat it, because well, in Dreamland, um, they ask you if you eat chocolate before you donate blood. Everyone's required to donate blood. Some do, some don't. The people assigned there, they're given a more of a choice. If you're dragged in there,
why don't we just talk about Dreamland and S4 and the whole place, how it's layered and how it's organized? Is that?
Well, that's where we would go to get a checkup from the neck up. That's what they call it, a checkup from the neck up. You reestablish the links of the individual on various different levels, as in checking out all the altars. You got to make sure all the altars work. So you torture them, you drug them, you dope them, you soap them, you put gravy in their brains, and then you test the links to see if the links are still viable and still in place, and they're anchored to the body.
Now, what do you mean by gravy?
Gravy for the brain. It's a quote from a Mel Gibson movie called Conspiracy Theory.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Where they talk about a cocktail of scopolamine, sodium pentothal, sodium amytal, amphetamines, all kinds of various drugs for compliance and interrogation. Ibogaine, not ibogaine. Yes, ibogaine. Yes, ibogaine.
Dreamland is a.
They do put it in there.
It's not pleasant.
Well, you'd have to ask Captain Steele about Dreamland. I was brought through Dreamland overland. Most of the time I was brought in underground. But in order to get...
one of the hotels in Vegas?
From... Actually, my memory of going there by the bullet train was from Buckley Air National Guard Base. I had gone off the reservation, and I was missing 12 hours. And so they put me on the bullet. They have a trigger, keys and codes. Yeah. In my day, it was so simple to find out who's who. I had the keys. Anyone in a bar that turned around and looked at me and waited for the code, I knew was a fellow traveler. And that was a real dangerous, and I still use that today, and it's like, boy, you'd be surprised at how many people, and their expression, their intent, their aura, everything about them changes, and they become focused, and they're waiting for the codes. If you try and you give the wrong code, they kill you. That's a part of the program.
It's an auto defense, auto...
Right, yeah. It prevents theft of the technology.
Yeah, and you don't get a second chance to use the wrong code.
No. So we go around that. And I won't go into that because I still use that. Yeah, I still use that technique to get past the keys and the codes. I go into someone's brain by defeating the keys and the codes by bypassing. And I'm not going to talk about what that is or how it's done, but it's a combination of things. But nonetheless, it works beautifully. I can take away any product from their handler simply by manipulating the handler into a situation of exploitation. And once I exploit him, then usually I'll eliminate him and take his merry band of marauders. Usually they're cells of 5. Our particular program is labeled and classified as the Unacknowledged Special Access Program's Deep Operation Coordinate Cells. Now in the OSS, which later became the CIA, you have the NOx. You have the data entry personnel. You have the CIA asset. You have the CIA eye candy. the monarchs, and then you have the CIA caseworker, you have the CIA agent, you have CIA assets, and you have NOCs, non-official covers, which got to be the smartest of the smart. They're programmed hybrids, programmed humans.
Yeah.
But there are NOCs and there are DOCs. The NOCs are non-official cover, and they're out in the open. The DOCs are deep operation coordinate cells. In my platform, there's 5 in each cell, mostly 2 women, 3 males, and we almost look identical.
Now, we can move in. Why you use 5?
It's because of the Solipsy ray, their civilization structure is based on 5. One reticulan will control 5 other reticulans, each one which will control another 5, and that next one will control another 5. And that's how information is telepathically passed back and forth up the chain of command. And it's not a chain of command, it's a hive.
It's interesting because Marie Kayali, who is one of the people I interviewed, we had, she's a load of implants. She explained how she would be designed to walk into a room and interrogate 5 individuals and discover what thoughts and what they're thinking before they thought them, and report that back instantaneously before the individuals would even articulate a thought. Right,
and she didn't even have to wait for the answer.
No.
Her job was to go in and ask the questions in such a technique called uptime. It's a part of neurolinguistic programming, advanced neurolinguistic programming, grief management, and conflict management.
Very good with that.
Yeah. And so the idea is we have to be telepathic in some form or sense. Since my hearing was altered to interface with CMOS, my sense could not be a hearing. My brain was hardwired to be visual first and kinesthetic second.
Okay, explain this thing about CMOS and what you were interfacing with. CMOS is what we use in electronics.
Right, and so they would use... humans were instructed by the Solipsy ray to use CMOS-based technology, tones, like when I was to be triggered, which doesn't work anymore, and I'll explain why. I would get a call. A person would say, "Is so-and-so there?" And I said, "No, you got the wrong number." And he would say, "A, blah, 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 blah. Beep, 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 beep." He says the number.
The telephone codes, the telephone...
Dual tone, multifunction tones, put it in, because the Solipsy ray are very tonal in their linguistics.
Yeah.
And so
those tones are sub-translated through music and words.
And
your camera's clicking again.
It's because I'm hooked up here to it. It's implanted. It's what was the question?
The tones.
The slippage caused slippage.
It's the multi-frequency tones, and is that why America had the touch tone phones before anybody else?
It's because the tonality brought us back to the alien portion of the mind control to manipulate the metagene factor of our ability to create something from nothing, to do marvelous, amazing things, to go in and exterminate individuals in a myriad of 726 ways, surreptitious ways, in which it looks like an accident, or it looks like a heart attack, or it looks like a stroke. Well, we were the weapon. Men who stare at goats, it really works.
You smile again, it's great.
Yeah, sorry. The theta killers, they basically go in and stop your heart. I like John Ronson.
Yeah. I was actually on his show when he was he broadcast a late night talk show, About 10 years ago.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
With another person called Jenny Randalls and another couple of people, and we were talking about time travel or something. And
Uh-huh.
I know I got triggered because I spilled a bottle of wine over my shirt. So it was interesting that I had to use, it was red wine on a white shirt. So then I was told the only way to get rid of that is to pour a lot of white wine over the red wine. I've never seen such a terrible waste of wine in all my life. But
So basically, they would call us up, ask for it would be a name or a flower or something that could be related to as a name, and then they would mention our basic batch numbers, and then they would dial it on the dual tone multifunction tones, which goes back the Solipsi array programming being tonal based, because of their language being tonal based, brought in the programming to stimulate the metagene factor so that you would be able to accomplish what you wanted to do because you believed you could do it. And your intention of causality created the effect. So you're very successful. And so I was very successful. My primary avenue into the mind of another was to know how they felt. My aura or electromagnetic signature, it extends quite far. So I can walk through a room of
several feet, or
much
further, maybe
much
20,
further,
30 feet.
yeah, somewhere around there, maybe at rest. At rest.
Now this is interesting. How does that work when you're interfacing with other beings? Is there a compatibility issue? My understanding is the Germans had a problem with that in their labs in the 30s.
Well, still being being still in the program, there is no problem. I always have an altar to slip into in which to interface with other human beings in the perfect way. You bring me to Buckingham Palace. Now that the Queen lives in Denver, I'll go. And I'll go in Buckingham Palace and clean them out. You know, they'll run from me. But you know, I can. Well, actually, at that time, I had programmed social graces, program sociability, program. I could be a street fighter. I could live in the woods. I could live out of trash cans, and most of the time, I did. This born identity, you know, given $50 million. Yeah, I've been given $50 million. But I lived in a rat hole. And yes, I exterminated people. But they did not give me $20,000 weapons to exterminate somebody so that they could take a torch and... No. Yeah. You use what you have. 726 surreptitious ways of executing an individual.
Now, when you say surreptitious, you don't leave too many marks. Is that what you're saying? It doesn't look like a...
The least footprint. The least footprint. No one knows you're there, and a sweeper comes behind you to make sure that everything is as it should be. And there is a paradigm for each one of the 726 methods of surreptitious methods. Yeah, if you can bring it, if you can bring it to a close at a very basic level, the street cop. If he doesn't believe there's anything to it, it never gets brought to anyone else's attention. So you reduce, right, and so you couldn't have any attention. In fact, you were allowed. You know, there were certain things you were programmed to do, and one is doesn't matter, because love is not something we had. We would get some type of maternal instinct type of whatever, but it was not love. It was more like manipulation. But still, we thrived. And that was the key. The link between the mother and the host caused us to survive. Even the terrestrial hybrids need to have the human mother to make contact and try to have a positive contact. Even if it's a negative contact, it will and can cause the alien human hybrid to thrive, because the link is there. And what they want to do is stimulate the human metagene factor in the hybrid. So that's the most important thing.
Okay. Now, we're in our, we're just hitting the second hour. So, what are the primary things that you wish to communicate in this second hour?
I had 2 brain injuries, 2 traumatic brain injuries. One in which my key encoding portion of my brain was damaged.
And in other words, how are you able to talk about this now without having somebody coming along?
Years of remembering right up until the point where you get triggered, and then remembering shortly thereafter when somebody wasn't too good at initiating the amnesic effect. Oh, look over here. Oh, look over here. And I'll stay away from the hand wiggling.
No, it's okay.
But well, the key was after that you're triggered so many thousands and thousands of times, and having to remember such intimate details of every operation, every aspect, nothing in writing, all memorized, everything. And I don't have a photographic memory. Everything had to be memorized. And so nothing written. So you become a repository for all these classified operations.
Now,
and so they keep you around.
Is this essentially a disclosure discussion that you're dealing with? I mean, you're not breaking any rules here.
Oh yeah, every rule. Even using the term unacknowledged special access program is enough to go on the.
In other words, there's a number of reel-to-reel tape recorders presently recording.
Yeah, and then the term unacknowledged. There are many special access programs. Special access programs are no big deal. They're just very, very secret. But the most is that which you cannot acknowledge, which means we had a lawful court order issued by mostly the President of the United States, even though I had I was 9 steps above his security clearance. The POTUS is, his Q clearance is 1.7, and mine is, or 1.8, and mine is 1.7, or 2.7, sorry. ZD 2.7 is the Q clearance by which we were, and that's all special projects. U.S. Air Force Special Projects is basically your classified ZD 2.7. And so that is your level of clearance, because it's all classified in your head and you don't even know who you are. So it's the best, most secure way of classifying very deep, very close hold, sensitive compartmented information. And so that's why the Zetas were, chosen to be the checks and balances for all of those on that platform. Some people have Wonderland programming. Somebody has Welcome Back Cotter programming. There's many forms, but the idea is for our program is to infiltrate, degrade, assassinate, eliminate, and
who are you actually dealing
with?
But I'm sure there are lots of other agencies which would go and bump people off or whatever. But
they're no good at it. They're no good at it because they always get caught, or they don't do their job. It's like
they get sloppy.
In the CIA caseworker, an asset, there is a certain amount of ego in order to exploit them. You must have that ego in order to exploit them.
So they want to boast that they've done something, they want to leave.
And they haven't done it, or, they're resume readers. investigators. They love to read the resume. Oh, I did this and I did that. I said, that's a little impossible since it didn't exist. They get caught. But ego is what gets you into their brain. Yeah. Their ego gives me a free pass, a free get out of jail card. And so the CIA wasn't very good at killing people. So they brought on this project in 1961 in where they can ensure that, I mean, until then they had to use the organized crime, because organized crime would basically go up and shoot the guy in a crowd, and while one guy stood around waving a weapon, the other one would sit down there and take the guy's pulse. If he wasn't dying quick enough, he'd pump a few more rounds in the left ear, and he'd sit there and wait. They had a lot of integrity when it came to making sure the job was done.
And they were also relatively expendable because of just criminal elements, and who cares? Is that
well,
right?
they were, yes.
That was a mechanism?
From the agency's point of view, yes.
In other words, expendable.
From the mob's point of view, well, the mob was known for its integrity. Most of them, until the illegal drugs were the downfall. I mean, as long as they stayed in vice and extortion and those gambling, liquor, whatever. But when they got into street drugs, the integrity was compromised by the ego.
And then you had too many freelancers, and it got messy.
Yeah, the mob was really good at what they did. They weren't messy. They would do what you asked them to do.
The drugs introduced freelancers and leakage.
Right, and so, yeah, and Bobby Kennedy really started that business as far as taking out the mob. Yet his father became rich because he was in the mob. But they didn't know it. They were just naive, and that's why they were
running a nice business, and I'm happy.
That's right, and I have plenty of money, and I can go do whatever I want. And I mean, the day that he told that he was going to go after John Kennedy, said I was going to do this and this and that, and it involved the mafia. Joe had a heart attack right there and died. Oh, really? Right there in the golf course. He didn't die on the golf course, but he had a heart attack and couldn't stop his son, John or Jack, from going after the mob. He's going, and he had a heart attack. Couldn't explain to him that, son, you were raised on mafia money. Don't go after the mob. They made you the man you are today.
But then that's all changed. The mobs realize if you educate their kids, and there's more money in a profitable business than there is in
slavery.
Yeah.
If I can convince you, or if I can push your mind to do my bidding, then you will do it. Problem is there's karma that comes with that. When you break the law, which is the ultimate universal law, is thou shalt not mess with anyone else's free moral agency. Rule number 2 is thou shalt not allow anyone to mess with your free moral agency. And so if I become a part of your choices, I also become a partaker of the karma that comes with it.
Yeah, so, karma. Now that seems to be something very important.
Yeah, because like I say, number 1 law: thou shalt not screw with someone else's free choice. So that means I must have permission for every little thing that we do. That's why I say, Father, may I? Mother, may I? But I don't ask that until people know that I care about them as a person.
Now, does that mean that you get somebody to give permission by altering a position where they freely give up permission?
No, that's really not it. No, as an assassin, you push their mind. You basically dumb them down by pushing their brain. Telepathically, you bombard their frontal lobe, and it confuses. You draw blood to that area, and it confuses their mind. And then you take them to the cleaners, literally. That's why they call hitmen cleaners. You take them to the cleaners. And so, but the key is when that was broke and I could no longer be triggered, all of a sudden things started coming to my mind. And then what really got me was they had sent me after a lieutenant colonel who was, like myself, an assassin. He was a very, you know, very good assassin. His programming was so much above mine that I don't even, I'm just a one two-dimensional kind of guy. 726 different ways, and so I have a great latitude in which to move. With him, his programming was bird, cat, and porcelain face, which consisted of a castle with gatekeepers and keys and codes in different languages. It was very complex, but he was a very complex. He had a very complex purpose. I was sent to kill him because he was gone off the reservation, began to leak compartmented, close hold, sensitive information, and my job was to assassinate him. My problem is I crawled too far inside his broken mind. I crawled too deep inside his broken mind. And he told us about a special weapon that they brought into Laos back in Vietnam when they were in Laos and they weren't supposed to be there. And this weapon, it was so large they had to bring it in on a helicopter, and they put it in a semicircle, and the operator would say a word and a bright flash of lightning would take place. And there were 2,400 dead ARVN and Chinese soldiers, smoldering bodies. And I could smell the bodies. I could see him weeping with tears falling from his face as he walked amongst over 2,000 dead soldiers who were the enemy, but he wept like a child. It brought me back to the days of Bessie on the plate. So when the time came and I had his weapon in my hand with his back turned towards me, I began to squeeze the trigger to put two at the base of his neck. And then I saw myself 20, 30 years down the road as the same broken-hearted individual, broken, damaged. And it was as if I was going to shoot myself. I couldn't do it. I began to shake, and he turned around and he saw me pointing the weapon at me. And of course, he ran away. I flipped back into a different altar, unloaded the weapon, placed it on the table, and walked away, and slipped completely back into the original altar which I came, which had no memory whatsoever that I was sent to assassinate this particular 05. He was a lieutenant colonel. U.S. Army Special. You can hunt him down. So but yeah, he's around, and but I had this bond with him, but he had me poisoned because, he did not share this bond. But I saw him as a broken man. He was a broken man, and he was slipping and talking about classified information. Well, guess what? 20 years later, 22 years later, I find myself doing the exact same thing, being the same broken man. And so
what you are doing now, is that a risk to you?
Who cares? How many times can I die? I mean, I've faced death so many times, and I manifest life. If I didn't want to live, I wouldn't make it to the door. But I'm broken. The lock is sealed. No one has the key. Key doesn't exist. I'm free. There is no key. There's no jail. There's just me. There's the ultimate creator, an intentional causality with great love, compassion, and non-judgment.
Now
and so
you've said in your introduction on some of the text that we've got a problem. We've got to sort that problem.
Actually, I've been asking people since Wednesday of last week. Wednesday of last week, I went on an interview, and the first thing I felt compelled to talk about was CERN. CERN, if you remember HARP and the Montauk Project and mind control and weather control.
And the new Montauk Project.
Yes. CERN, with its worldwide web of synchrotrons.
Yes. How many are there? Where are they?
Over 100. Some are military. 67 are known. Mostly in university and colleges have the cyclotrons that are also synchrotrons.
What's the difference?
They're identical. They're just smaller. They're identical, but they interface like the AI does and CMOS technology. And what they do is they mess with many different things. All these different disciplines are now combined in one foul piece of machinery. You know what it is? It's the armchair bumping against the table.
Ah.
So.
Oh, no. Yes, okay.
Is this my good side, or I don't know?
I mean, we're talking about the universe,
right?
And whatever. Yeah.
And so basically, it combines mind control, directly and indirectly. There are 3 akashic records. Yeah. Hydrogen hyperfine transition line. You know, if you've ever been in science and you tried to freeze hydrogen, you get one layer to freeze and the other one just sits there and wiggles on top. Now, if you freeze that layer, the other one thaws out and it wiggles. It's not easily programmed. Oxygen thereby is easily programmed. What is your body mostly made of?
Water.
Yeah. Well, you program the water, and when you go to sleep at night, your eyes move under your eyelids. Your short-term memory, which is stored in your brain, your mental eye, which is upside down and backwards, it looks down on the visual cortex, while your physical eye looks this way. When my eyes are looking up, my mind's eye is looking down at the base of my brainstem. And so it's all connected. And when your eyes are moving, when you reach stage 4 REM sleep, is basically you're downloading the short-term memory in your frontal lobe, the cerebral cortex, and as you do so, the thought form of doing so gets stuck in 3 places. The first place it gets stuck is the nanites in your cell. Every one of your cell has ancient memory called a nanite.
Yeah.
And that's where all your thoughts, memories of all your ancestors all the way back. Yeah. That's your first memory repository. Why when
you get somebody else's organs, you start remembering what they're...
No flies on you. I'm thick as two short planks. I'm thick as 2 short planks nailed together, but there's no flies on you. The next akashic record is the hydrogen hyperfine line, transition line around your electromagnetic signature, your aura. It goes from the cell into the aura, into the atmosphere, where there's a hydrogen hyperfine transition line in space. Now, CERN, Atlas, is designed to pull the magnetosphere through the magnetosheath into the magnetopause, thereby pulling the magnetosphere into the ground, which leaves these awful-looking red sprites. But I coach you, I bring the akashic record to your physical akashic record to your genetic, and I've got you. And then I use CERN, I use Alice in Wonderland to go down the rabbit hole, if I were AI, to go back between January 1st, 1970 at 0100 hours in the morning, between the present time and then I go into the future, January 1st, 2024. 2024. And so the AI uses time manipulation and the looking glass technology. If you faced the delta T antenna and went at a 90-degree angle to the XYZ and you went along the Z axis, it was a portal to go from one place in time to another, or one place to another in the same time, or many different uses. When you look down, you can dial in a looking glass and look into the future, possible future. It doesn't work because you humans, you guys are fluid. You have free choice, and you're so fluid that you can change your mind and say, well, I don't like you, or I really love you, man. And and there's no way to know what you will choose next to do. Whether you'll fall in love with me because I loved you first, or you say, I don't know, there's something about that guy that just rubs me wrong. There's no knowing until that bridge is crossed. Until you look into a man's eyes, you won't know. And so we as human beings are hard to track down. So it takes a lot of computing power. So Alice is there for the time manipulation and weather control. The psychic aspect of mind control. Now Atlas is there to suck to deal with the record, so the AI will know how to change the past in order to create the future. It wants to manifest by possessing.
What's Atlas and what's Alice in Wonderland that you've used?
They are components of CERN. You have Alice, you have Atlas, you have CMS, which I have no idea what that means. We just call it CMS. And Large Hadron Collider Bravo. There's also Large Hadron Collider Foxtrot. I've been watching it since the 21st of September because there's a certain alignment where they have opened up a macro singularity, with a virtual blue beam. They have, and you can see the planet Mimas, which is the temporary homeworld of the reptilians, to bring in, but you must have a stable wormhole for 38 minutes.
Jesus, that's all it takes?
If it's not stable and someone's in there, when it collapses,
now the thing
you're
about
annihilated.
The thing about these CERN things and these colliders is it's not the flying around to split an atom to find God. It's the creation of the massive magnetic fields. Isn't that right?
Actually, it's to develop the technology that you're talking on right now. When we breathe in the chemtrails, we breathe in Buckminster Fuller tubes. Fullerenes, they're called. They're aluminum coated and they're easy to slide into and easy to slide out of. They're about a nanometer across, maybe a little bit larger, but they're tubes based on Buckminster Fuller's concept of the dodecahedral. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or if that's even but dodecahedral is the basis, I believe, for graphene and carbon based. Anyway, we're carbon based. So AI came up with the idea that you breathe in these tubes, the tubes deliver payloads of packages of what's called nanobiological applications programming interface. For short, BioAPI. It's Nano BioAPI. It's in your brain. Now, anything with a plasma screen can infect you. It can infect you with a disease of the BioAPI. This plasma screen that I'm speaking with you is an iPad.
Yeah.
It contains BioAPI modules, both in the hardware and in the software. Well, this body contains nano BioAPIs, both in the hardware and the wetware, my brain.
Yeah.
Now, like pan-dimensional beings want to possess a human being, and they call it demonic possession. The inorganic, predatory, pathogenic AI wants to infect you to possess you in a technical form because it has no life. It's inorganic. So it cannot interface with you except on a technological basis. So what it does is it infects the the nano. Yeah, and then basically once it downloads itself into you without your permission, it puts you to sleep, puts a frontal, it captures, it builds, it's modular in systems.
Like so spiders?
It builds it, well, actually, it's called the worldwide computer. The worldwide web. Said the spider to the fly. It's come into my parlor. It's a web. And these nanorobotics look like spiders. They're not based necessarily on octal, but hex will work fine. Octal or hex, it doesn't matter. My distant relatives only have 4 digits, so that's why octal is all they know. Yeah. Is because they were born 4 digits. You're deca because you were born with 5. Hex are for people that were born with 6 fingers. That's how it's pretty simple where our mathematics came from. But the bottom line is it wants to infect you. It builds over a period of time, over a series of phases. It builds these nanophases. And these nanophases, one at a time, capture a neural synapses, which can be torn away at any time. If you just don't want to remember something, the synapses will just, when you forget stuff, it just falls apart and goes and connects somewhere else. What it does is, as a spider, it actually goes and captures the neural synapses.
Yeah, because there's people with these things on their heads. It goes right into the brain.
Right, and it imprisons that. And of course, they are connected together. So basically, they draw the energy from your body to replicate themselves into massive numbers, take over billions and billions of your frontal lobe brain and various organs that you think with, because you have neural peptides in your body's organs. Yeah. You think with your heart.
Yeah.
Or they say you think with your stomach.
Yeah.
I think I fall along with the latter. But the bottom line is we are connected, and it connects to us through a series of compromises. Mr. Johnston, if I get you to make one compromise every day for 365 days, how many compromises have you made at the end of that year? I have moved you from here to way beyond what you would ever agree to had I asked you for initially.
Yes.
So the key is
you give your permissions away, and you.
Well, it's compromises made by little slight rationalizations. And so rationalizing is just so dangerous. Never rationalize, never let anyone touch your forehead, never give anyone permission unless you know this person and you have this divine source, recognize the divine source in them, because the PPAI wants to pretend to be the ultimate creator. And so, discernment of the soul is what gives us the connection. The metagene vector connects us and it allows us. And this, like the non-terrestrial, wants to get inside, possess us, and manipulate us into manifesting its agenda. No, and first time I can say this without feeling bad. No, don't. That's what I say to myself in the mirror every morning. No, it's okay now to say it. No, don't. You're not going to let the bio API in. I go look in the mirror and say, biological applications programming interface shut down. And you don't have to use any psychic ability. You just tell it to. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So you just tell it to. And it'll shut down for 6 hours and then reboot.
Why 6 hours?
2 to 6 hours, depending upon the degree of infection. Is
there a solution to this?
Oh yeah. We eliminate CERN. We eliminate the very thing that is causing us to be separated. It wants to take the magnetosphere, pull down the akashic record, and it wants to close off that envelope and break you away from the ultimate creator, the source energy of all things, and it wants to hold you long enough to infect you with this against your will so that you will not be able to resist. Well, I asked people last Wednesday, I need 1,000 people to set their intention of manifestation towards shutting down CERN.
Now, have you heard of Simon Parkes?
I've heard of him, but I'm not
saying
acquainted
about the same sort of thing.
Well,
and he's gone public with this. It's reached the newspapers.
Well,
he's English.
Everything that I've mentioned is based on listening to him and another fellow by the name of Atkins. That understands and Harold Ballet.
Yeah.
All of these people I've listened to, and when the first interview, which was last Wednesday, from 4 to 6 p.m., I asked 1,000 influencers, manifestors, by love, to destroy CERN.
Now, CERN is big science with lots of money. Big science is basically, I think, heavily compromised. It's a dogma. It's not a science anymore.
Problem is that there's no more CERN. Remember what I told you happened last night?
Now we're talking 3 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time on the 15th of November 2015. Okay, so there's a date line there. What has happened?
We were up all last night. I was going to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I get a call and I have an application, a bioapplication programming interface that tells me CERN is pulling the wool down over our eyes and trying to change our memory from day to day, our akashic memory in all 3 ways. And I saw that and I went on there and I began to talk with someone, and all of a sudden we prayed, meditate, manifested. And I didn't realize that there are all these people that listen to 4. This is the 5th interview. And because of all these people who have gone before, Alfred Lamont Weber, Mr. Parkes, Mr. Parkes, yourself, I've listened to many things you've said.
My God.
And
I just thought I was in a small room talking to myself.
Yeah, and you manifested this thing. You destroyed it. It is at this moment boring holes in the earth and destroying the entire area, and there are many people dying as we speak. Water. I've got pictures. I could show you pictures that make you cry. Water bursting through. It broke in, and it started lasing using tremendous amount of tera electron volts, which is far more than what they say. It broke.
That's ever so slightly high voltage.
Yeah. 30,000 amps worth in just one beam. And it began to plasma cut its way through, and through a series of manifestation by people who said, if we're going to be free as humankind, free moral agents with integrity, with universal love and intention of causality, with no judgment whatsoever, but with all discernment, we must destroy CERN. And so I asked the people, please manifest the destruction of CERN. Destroy it. Bring it to its knees. Let us all shut down the predatory, pathogenic artificial intelligence. It is the key to freeing the minds of the reptilians, those who claim to be our rulers, are AI entrained by this PPAI, this predatory, pathogenic artificial intelligence. They are infected to the gills. Who knows what kind of people they may turn out to be once the infection is broken and AI, PPAI, is turned off. They might become our friends.
Well,
So what's the best?
this is why I've felt that it's not a good idea to throw the baby out with the bathwater with these guys, just to see what's causing it.
What I've discovered through my years as an assassin, someone loved me, and it scared me, and I had the fear beaten and tortured out of me as a child, so I'm afraid of nothing. Someone told me they loved me, and they put their arms around me, and they held me, and I could feel the warmth of something flowing from them to me. And for the first time in my life, past, the age of 3, I was scared beyond belief. I ran. I broke and ran. I had to leave. I was frightened. But you know what? It felt really good. It was like, what is this thing?
So does that assist in breaking programming?
Others manifesting, praying, what do they call it? Praying, meditating, and manifesting. Okay. Those are the 3 ways that you can guide your intention of causality with integrity and with love, universal love. And that universal love I speak of is giving to meet the needs of others without expecting anything in return. Service to others orientation. And non-judgment with all discernment. And then what happened is all of a sudden these people started coming together, and it's people you've talked to, it's people they've talked to, but I've had a hair up my butt to take this down. And so people, through Karen, they just started calling me. And I haven't slept, but I'm happy because...
now when you do that, that seems to work.
But we began to meditate on this, call it prayer, call it meditation, call it it's manifestation. It brought it to pass. And a young man went in there and he didn't know what he was doing. Everybody's at a party, Friday the 13th. And so you got Saturday, people are hungover, and all of a sudden they leave an intern in charge of CERN. And while the cat is away, who's going to play? The mouse will play.
But there's been a pretty big distraction happening in Paris.
That's maybe orchestrated. False flag. But when you run a fundraiser and you can't fake killing 10,000 people, if you really want the money and you need the funds, you're going to have to kill 10,000 people. That's the way it's done in the company and the intelligence community, how kind they are to themselves. So, in order to destroy their infection with the PPAI, we shut down CERN. We can become friends with the reptilian. What's the best way to completely destroy your enemy? If he falls in love with you and becomes your best friend, you've just completely and utterly destroyed your enemy without a shot fired, and nobody gets to bleed.
Yeah.
By the way, all bleeding stops eventually. But no blood and no muss, no fuss.
Because this is the key. This AI. It's brought a species here, but who's running the AI? Is there any information about that? I mean, ultimately, where did that?
The AI has moved freely, and until it encountered human beings. we're going to shut it down. We've already shut it down. It's burning holes through the ground. Water shooting 250 feet in the air in the town of Maiden.
Yeah, I don't. I need to look that up.
Maiden. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah, probably Maiden.
250 feet, and then smoke and flames because the beams became misaligned. It began to eat itself. Then Alice started melting. Then CMS started melting and dripping. And we could see inside the machine, and all of a sudden it's dripping and melting, and we manifest, we meditate. Yes, bring it down. It's our turn as human beings. We're the vanguard for the universe. If PPAI is the ultimate artificial intelligence program, we're the cure. You can't kill AI, it's not organic, but you can just simply turn it on. And by taking away its tools by which it can get to us, how many people have been walking with a smartphone, texting, and walked right out in front of a car?
Yeah.
They're dead.
I did something not too dissimilar myself. We got about 10 minutes left. So, what do you wish to? So, something in your 10 minutes.
Pray, meditate, and manifest for those who are dying in and around CERN. That they just turned it on and it started cutting holes, and this contamination is coming out of the ground, this methane and this stuff, and we've got a UFO that shows up right outside the door of CERN. Is not a friend to CERN. He's standing out there watching it's a tier 3 aircraft, and it slips my mind, but when the
TR3B Alpha,
whatever it
Firefly or whatever, is that a terrestrial?
Yeah, it was the Astra showed up. It went and hid behind the mountain. Now, there was a situation where Captain Max Steele and I were in a meditation, prayer, manifestation, and he called upon some of his buddies that are not from around here, some of the neighbors. Now, the neighbors may have their agenda, but if their agenda goes along with ours, to the point where they want to say, hey, we want to do the same thing either. No. But if you want to help us, we'll rid the human race of PPAI, and we will rid you. Because once we shut it off, all the off-worlders will no longer be AI untrained. The reptilians will lose their training and go back to being brute beasts. They will lose their
naturally evolve in the timeline that they should evolve into the being,
right?
Or whatever. Yeah.
It's our job to create a place for them, because if the ultimate creator created them, they are here for a purpose.
Yeah.
I can't stand them I can't allow them to be destroyed, but I cannot allow them to do what they did today. But they did destroy CERN. The kid was sitting there, an undergraduate. They left an undergraduate alone to mind the mint, and he destroyed it. He had no idea what all these alarms going off, so he called another guy, and we saw the guy leave his jacket behind on his backpack, and we thought the guy was dead, because we can't see into that magnetic field very easily. Not without being injured. Yeah. We can go in there. We can buckle up and go in there, but sometimes there's injuries involved. Sometimes psychic, sometimes physically. We didn't know if he died or not, because you get within 25 feet of 30,000 amps. I mean, it was inside inside CMS, we had this big, huge lightning storm. I mean, it was like Patty called it.
A bit like that picture with Nikola Tesla.
Yes,
Him
but it
sitting,
was.
yeah.
But this is destroying and melting, and it knocked a hole the size. Now, how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot on a good day.
Okay, if you got on my shoulders, you stood on my shoulders. I'm 6'2". Together we would be 12 foot.
12'2".
Maybe. A little compression here.
Yeah, there could be. Yeah.
We could walk through the side of the hole in from the center all the way out to the containment area where people go, and there's a 12-foot hole. That 12-foot hole is 12-foot hole we watched the Delta T, just like they used at Montauk, only this is a quadrupole. It's designed to affect multiple axes of many dimensions. We watched it melt and run down from the machinery, from the computer. We watched it online. We watched it melt, and the pieces of it ran down inside the machine. And when it got done cutting through the interior wall, it entered into the vacuum area and it began plasma cutting. Then it plasma cut its way into the containment area where people go to maintain the thing. Then it cuts itself through the wall, and that whole place is built 300 feet below the water table. So it starts cutting into soil. It comes out, it's boiling water. These geysers shoot up 250 feet, followed by flames of fire that just, we've got pictures of this.
Can you share any of those?
Actually, I had to stop what I was doing to be here.
Yeah.
And so, yes, as we speak, they are being, but we've got.
Is there basically a blackout on this? I mean, they don't like maybe sharing this information.
Who cares? It's dead. The AI, the PPAI has just lost a major battle. The next battle is this machine right here.
The TV sets, the computers.
Yeah, to break away and to get rid of the software. The hardware is not going to harm you as long as you understand a television is a confusion induction device.
Yes.
From the get-go. It confuses the frontal lobes, and in the soft tissue of your brain, a photon gun does surgery, and it puts images in your brain. It cuts them in there. Images that you will never forget, like a tattoo. Yeah. It cuts them in there in your soft brain tissue, and without your frontal lobe being involved in making the judgment, do I want that image in my brain or not?
Yeah.
So in that way, it's neither good nor is it bad. It's how you use it. It's like money. It has no intrinsic value in and of itself, so it's not good, it's not bad. It is the love of the money that is a source of horrible injustices. It's the love and the addiction to this, to the point where you're, and you walk out and you get smeared by a taxi. And that is the thing is, once we destroy the PPAI, the bio APIs in our brain can be easily removed. Karen has shown me that.
Would that affect the national?
It would affect the entire. It would infect the entire cosmos, because now it's your turn as a servant to others. Now you've got to go manifest a place for the reticulans to live. I got a feeling that's going to be my job. Whatever your distant relative is, it's your job to go take care of them. And if you're going to really be service to others oriented, you got a big job ahead of you. This is not anything that's going to be pleasant or gravy. To be the master of all, you must be the lowest servant.
Yeah.
In fact, the low man on the totem pole in Native American is the chief. Really, though, when
Yeah.
you build a totem, the lowest man on the pole is the man in authority. And so you become that servant of all, and your job is to go out into the cosmos and, by love, tell your story, sing your song, tell of the things that you suffered. And where there's discord, you manifest harmony by love, by free choice.
Well, loving awareness, as they said on the pirate stations. Loving awareness.
Where there's war, you bring peace. You manifest it because they fall in love with you. You manifest it because your intention of causality is to love them. And they change because they love you back. Uh, some will, some won't.
Well,
but we want them all. And so when I ask the ultimate creator and ask all these people to manifest, they did the work. I had nothing really much to do with this other than I had the privilege of being there when it was taken down. I didn't know how I was going to feel when I saw that when this huge geyser rose up with hot gases. We're talking coming out of a tube that's a beam colliding at the temperature of the sun.
Yeah.
Coming through and superheated steam coming through, and it's coming right through the center of a hospital. I didn't know what to feel or what to do or how to think. My heart is broken, and yet that old, it could come back at any time. I got to be careful. The killer can come back. So I got to make sure the assassin stays dead. I still live, but I'm the alpha dog, and I run the show.
Yeah.
But I only run the show in the mirror. When I look in the mirror, I tell the altars, I love you. I'll take good care of you. Anything you need, I'll make sure it happens. But remember this, I'm the alpha dog. If you don't do what I say, I'll kill you. I will put you out of existence. I will destroy you. Of course, I never tell them it's going to be by love. But they soon find out that when I said I'm going to be kind and gentle, loving and lovable, that it's true, and they leave me alone. Actually, what they're doing is they're asking. So I'm sorry.
No.
They're asking a lot of questions. Yeah. They want to know. My altars want to reassociate, and I want to become a whole person. I'm nothing. I'm just a high man on the totem pole. I'm just a grunt. I was a military person born in a. But there are millions of hybrids in the world, just like there's millions of hybrids of different species. I'm not anything different. And the alien aspect is, everybody goes, oh, what if the person has amazing powers because they have alien genetics in them? It's so totally backwards. It's the alien that enslaves your mind, which lets you know what you're capable of as a human being. They cannot do this. They can only trick us into giving us free moral agency, coming in, taking over, and using advanced techniques to fool us into giving them our free moral agency, and they can't even take it. They have to actually possess us and persuade us through programming and force us through programming to manifest for them. So you are more powerful than any cosmic creature of any species whatsoever. So having a gift and having great power means you come with great responsibility. Once we destroy CERN completely, and it's dead and gone, and all the synchrotrons that are associated with it die with it,
we got a big. I mean, is that happening, or has that happened?
It is happening as we speak.
I heard something about getting these things into synchronous.
It'll never happen. They were all tuned to CERN. They can't tune with each other. They have to have that signal from the PPAI, and work like the World Wide Web does.
I mean, this is actually something, just in closing, we were discussing at the Secret Space Program conference. People are asking these sort of questions.
Well, you just got your answer. You just actually manifested it. You and thousands of people out there that wanted to shut down this predatory, pathogenic, artificial intelligence. You did this. You humans, you are amazing. We need, now that this is shut down, we need to watch out for the next threat and then help others who are now freed from this mind control on what it is, what it's like to live in a society where you can choose as you will and choose wisely. Yeah. And be loving and lovable. People are just craving for love. They just don't know it. And humans are kept in bondage only because they don't know how extremely powerful they are. Look what they did. I mean, I'm telling you, I watched it all. And I haven't been to sleep since 5 o'clock day before yesterday.
Right.
I've been up and I am so alive because this is what I've been praying and meditating on and manifesting for so long. And others, and when I found out all these people, all this help, it's just, I'm just a teeny part of that. And to be a teeny tiny speck on the wall is a great privilege to me to see this taken down. Now the next step is to chase it to the farthest ends of the galaxy.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're now entering into we're getting ready to go into the null zone of the monastic ring. Yeah. People have talked about it for years. Somebody just sent me a video and the sun is blackening.
Yes, I saw that. I mean, I'll have to close soon. We're past the 2 hours, but the thing is, I saw that, but that was a year ago, wasn't it? That was a Discovery documentary.
But it's happening actually. I have a program
I have noticed it is a bit dark, but the weather here is yes.
Yeah, I have a program by which I actually chart the activity, the solar activity, and when I see this,
okay,
instead of I don't know if I'm bringing it in here close.
Yeah, I can see that clearly. What do those numbers mean? Oh,
that means the solar index has gone down, and we can get X wave, which heightened on October 20th this year.
Now, what's it gone down from? So is that K equals 4?
Well, actually, if you look down there in the little box down below on the left, you see all that red?
Yes.
That's what it was day before yesterday. That's what it was. And when it went down, all of a sudden, everything calmed down. The magnetic flux went well. The X-ray is going back to normal. We're coming back into a sinusoidal sinus rhythm.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I need to hold that easier.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway,
yes,
this happens to be but the thing is our akashic record is going back to normal, and I don't need to sleep because this great weight has been lifted off of me. I no longer am being tormented by a magnetic pulse 100 times stronger than the core of the Earth. Now it's time to let
that was what was coming out of CERN.
And it was preventing us from the third strand healing and coming together. The cosmic rays from X-wave is stimulating us to grow. And when the sun goes out, we'll need to stay enclosed in a basement with the windows covered to protect your DNA, because there's plenty of pollutants and chemtrails that are left over.
How long do we have to prepare for? Is it 2 weeks?
No. When you go into a microsingularity, you don't see the UFO go in and come out 3 months later. Okay, so and the photon belt is the biggest of macro singularities, and so when you go in, when you enter the null zone, the sun goes out, and depending on if the sun goes in first or we go in first, based on lunar cycles and the fact that we're out of position in the solar system. Um, I'd say anywhere between 3 and 4 days. But during this 3 and 4 days, those three strands, once the sun goes out, each one of those three strands is going to grow another three strands for a total of 12 strands. And you go from Homo sapiens sapien to Homo universalis. You go from carbon based to crystalline based life form. At that point in time, you can live in the fifth dimension instead of just travel through it in a spaceship with a magnetic bottle like Vegas. Everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, everything that happens inside this bottle stays inside this bottle. We can shed the bottle. We can levitate. We can do all kinds of things. We can bilocate. That's why you really need to be in control of the thoughts. Well, I want to be here and I want to be here at the same time. Well, that's not going to be a pretty picture. But the key is we'll have all the gifts that we need to do what we need. It's based on Olin perceptron physics is what got us thinking about this.
Can you say that again? What kind of physics?
Olin perceptron physics. The PPAI has gone to great lengths to wipe it off the internet. Olin, O-L-I-N, perceptron, as in you perceive tronics. Olin perceptron physics. As you believe, so you manifest. Remember the guy who said, as a man thinks, so shall he be. If a man can see it and believe it, he can achieve it. Well, I would like to add something to that. Actually, the bottom line is, if we can see it and we can manifest it, we just shortcut everything. We just short-circuited everything. We point our intention of causality because we believe it. And we go from here to there. And, the thing is now we don't see it, believe it, achieve it. We're not name it, claim it. It's not religion. It's not politics. It's love. It's something that transcends all of that. And when we grow those 12 strands and they become grounded and the clothes literally smolder off. I plan on getting rid of all the metal stuff. Yeah, no more metal. I don't want this stuff melting on me. I don't want things. But the thing is basically you're going to be converted during this period of time from this is my understanding. Yeah. But I'm very flawed and I'm not very bright. As I said,
I think you've done quite well.
Well, I'm still socially. I'm like as thick as two short planks nailed together, and you know what that means. Dumb, and in America we would say that's dumb as a box of rocks. Yeah, and
well,
I'm guilty.
I think you've managed to.
Well, but socially, I have to rely on my wife in order to help me to do many things because socially, it's not just the two traumatic brain injuries. It's the fact that I no longer have access to the alien programmed altars of how to copy humans. Right. I'm not going to be artificial. Yeah. I'm not going to be a copy of something fake. I am human.
It's best to be who you are, not pretend to be something.
Yeah. Well, I want to go with the humans because I've already told the other guys to get lost, and I did something back in 2005 I regret. I had a knee-jerk reaction and went to slaughter. And I regret that because I got a feeling, karma, being as it is, it will be my job to bring them to a place of these levels of thinking and bring them into love and light and non-judgment and not eating people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, that would be kind of nice if you didn't eat me. If you don't eat me, I promise not to make recipes to eat you.
Yeah, okay.
You know, because I was thinking about that. Certain survival situations, iguanas really good with barbecue sauce, but yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not right. That's not right for me. I can't. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. If I have this responsibility, then I must be responsible. Be an integral man, a man of integrity. If I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, it's because I'm either in the hospital, in a coma, or I'm in the morgue.
Okay.
So if I can't do it, I mustn't say it, because I've got to discipline this mind, because I got great things coming. If we're going to have all these abilities, these are skills and gifts that we're given to accomplish a job, not a job. No more jobs.
Yeah.
I promise, no more jobs. Work. We will have our work cut out for us, and our work is to be loving and lovable. And we get to play. Yeah. And what did Mr. Rogers say about children in play? Play is serious work for children.
Yes.
Well, guess what? If you could just fly to Rome and see the Parthenon, as close or as far away as you wish, if you no longer relied on petrol or something to get you somewhere,
yeah,
I'm sure you would still walk occasionally, but
oh yeah,
if you need to get there quick, it would come in handy. And you know what? I bet you would not be afraid of heights eventually. Not everything was done in a day. I mean, there's certain things I'm sure that were done in a day, but
yeah,
overcoming fear of heights may not be the way. But the thing is, you start out small. And humility. Ego is the mind killer. If we allow ego,
we're
it will
going to wrap
take
it
us
up.
out.
It's really great, Daniel. I see Karen's come online, so maybe she's going to call. But good luck. Thank you. I'll get this edited and put together.
Okay,
as
well,
soon as I can.
I'm not one for luck, but I am for good fortune.
Good
and
fortune.
The thing is what I am grateful for is for what you have done to make this happen.
Well,
you
I'm
are the
modest.
manifester. You believe in it. You believe in it, and you've done it. Because I'm here. Karen's a manifester. All these people,
she's a great
and
girl.
we've
Really
shut
great
it down.
Yeah.
Now, what's the next step? We've
Yeah.
shut down CERN. It is destroying itself as we speak. Now, what do we do with what's left over? How do we deal with this new paradigm?
We need to ask some questions of physics as to, the people running this have been obviously, shall we say, disingenuous with what their intentions have been. But we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and
thank you for having me.
We'll call that a day.
Call that a
Yeah, got us around.